Hello and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch and we review and we discuss every horror movie on Netflix. That's right, we're watching all of them. Back again, it's me, Chris, and I'm here with Patrick.
Hello.
And I'm here with Steven.
Hi.
And joining us again, we have a special guest. Who is it?
It's an EHMON All-Star, there's your hint.
A recent addition to our guest stable, we have Christine back again.
Heyo.
Hi,
Hi, Christine.
Hi, guys.
Christine was on our Polaroid episode, and she returns again for this episode.
We pick the cream of the crop for Christine. I think that's the pattern that's developing here.
I'm super flattered.
Yeah. How have you been lately, Christine? It's been a while. Are you
quarantining, just like everybody else, and slowly losing my mind. But other than that, I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Have you been writing?
I have been writing, but it's interesting because, everybody's got all this quarantine time now, and people are doing crazy, extraordinary things, and I'm just like, well, I wrote 200 words today, and then I sat on the couch a lot. So
yeah, well, Patrick and I have actually been talking about that, where, I think a lot of us are feeling the pressure to, put this time to good use and write our masterpiece or write your pizza face killer or whatever it might be. But we were talking about how, like, the actual writers and actually successful people that, like, I follow on Twitter are like, listen, it's, a crazy time. It's fucking with your head. Don't feel bad for just sitting on the couch with your Doritos.
Like, just managing to get through the day is an achievement in itself right now.
Yeah, self-maintenance is the most important thing I'm finding. I have these lofty dreams of finally writing my Funhouse remake during this pandemic, and that lasted about a week. I think I wrote an 800-word treatment, and I've given up. For now.
800 words is good, though. Like, 200 words, 800 words, those are both good. Good job, both
I did bang out like a 800-word treatment for a movie via text message about a football coach that recruits a ghost to play on his team.
And then you emailed it to us, like, copy-pasted from your text, which was just a uniquely delirious way to read a movie treatment.
I still think it's a good idea, damn it.
I enjoyed it.
At least, now that I know where the bar is for horror movies. So I'll take responsibility. I picked Death House for this week.
Why in God's name, Chris? What attracted you to this title?
It sounded great in theory.
Yeah, first of all, the name's Death House. Secondly, the synopsis on Netflix, and we can get into whether or not the movie actually had anything to do with that synopsis, was about a high-tech prison modeled after Dante's Inferno. And you look at the cast, and it's the Avengers of horror icons.
Mm-hmm.
Which always makes me skeptical immediately when I see a cast like this, because, these people are not very expensive, but I presume this to be a low-budget movie, and all of the money clearly went to the cast and not any other element of development in this thing.
We got Barbara Crampton, we got Felissa Rose, we got Kane Hodder, we got
Michael
Tony
Berryman.
Todd, we got Michael Berryman. We got, who else do we fucking have in this
Sid
movie?
Haig.
We
got Adrienne Barbeau.
As the narrator. I was like, where the fuck is Adrienne Barbeau? Turns out she was the narrator, which I think is just the person who, like, narrates the little, digital tours of the prison a couple of times.
Yeah. You're sold on the movie because you see all of these all-stars in the cast. But the top billing goes to Cody Longo and Courtney Palm.
Wait, hold the fucking phone. Also, I forgot to mention that we got, on my list of we also got EHMON alum Dee Wallace.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
And, she was going to be at Motor City Nightmares. We were going to see her again. And if we see her again, I may ask her about Death House.
I want to know, like, where she found a stash of Quaaludes to take during the production of this movie. It's like, we love Dee, but man, this is one of the most, like, absent performances I think I've ever seen in a horror movie.
You know, this is the part where we usually kind of explain the premise of the movie, but this is the most inscrutable movie I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had no idea what it was about the entire time. I would think I knew what was going on and like where it could possibly go and what they were getting at, and then they would just do something ridiculous and then it would totally throw me off. And it looks like, for me, that they just wrote the script as they were recording it. Because everything was like all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, there's a line in the final, 3 minutes of this movie where one of the protagonists says to the other, "We don't even know who we are or what we are." And I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This movie, which we should mention, was, I'm a little confused on this because everything on the internet says Leatherface himself, Gunnar Hansen, wrote this movie, but in the opening credits, he just gets a story bite. But it feels like it was written by Benjamin Marra in a way, like who makes comic books about that are like teenage horny adolescent violent fantasies that are sort of like parodies of 80s and 90s action movies. Like, this movie seems to be focused on a lot of like big ideas about good and evil and the role of technology. And it's just fucking delirious how that information is delivered.
Wait.
No
sense.
sense.
I have to intervene on Benjamin Marra's behalf here because I love Benjamin Marra. Benjamin Marra makes self-aware comics, and this shit is not self-aware whatsoever. Also, Benjamin Marra's comics are entertaining, which this movie also is not.
I wasn't making a direct comparison. Thank you for correcting me on that. No, it feels like the kind of thing that Benjamin Marra is parodying, I should say. It just feels like, this is something that you'd find in like a horny 13-year-old horror fan's, sketchbook or something.
There were a lot of breasts.
A lot of breasts.
A lot of breasts.
I lost count.
A lot of breast shots. A lot of nip shots.
Yeah, a lot of just close-up breast shots.
Yes.
As an excuse to show you a character's tattoo, but it's really just a boob shot.
I will say this. It was a variety of different kinds of boobs, so I appreciated that.
That's true. There was boob diversity.
It's a real buffet of boobs. We've got
boob diversity, but not racial diversity, because this was a super white cast.
I'm just at a loss. This is a really hard movie to talk about, and it's going to sound like we're just bad at talking about movies or like we just want to pile on to a movie.
No.
But this is the most unique movie watching experience I've ever had in my life.
Yes.
It was like I felt like I had drank like 2 bottles of Robitussin or something.
Listen, I started watching this movie. I was kind of tired when I started watching it. I wasn't paying great attention for the first half hour. I shut it off, went to go do something else, and came back, and I was like, man, that really wasn't making any sense. But, it's probably me. I wasn't paying very good attention. I'm going to start this from the beginning. I went back and rewatched the first half hour. It did not make any more sense.
No, I know what you mean.
So I literally had just got done watching this, and what I did was, because I needed to get out of the house, I left, I parked, it was just me and my vehicle, and I watched it on my cell phone. It was just me in the video, and it was still fucking horrible. Okay?
You went into self-isolation with this movie.
I did. And I still didn't understand a damn thing.
I remember almost nothing. I feel like I drank the milk of amnesia that they keep referring to in the movie. Let's start with the very beginning. What the fuck is Tony Todd's role in all of this? Can anybody explain that to me?
Great question.
That's top of my list right there.
Literally, this movie begins and ends with Tony Todd of Candyman fame, Final Destination fame, who I love. I mean, he's just always such a uniquely malevolent presence whenever he shows up. And he's got some young woman in the back of a van. She seems to be paralyzed somehow or other. He's given her something to make her unable to move. And he's just fucking monologuing about how he grew Venus flytraps and just making
that was my favorite part.
Yeah, just making very vague comments about what he's going to do to her. And it never becomes clear, A, what he's actually doing to these women, or B, what his fucking purpose is in this movie in general, because he only has 2 scenes that start and end the movie. I guess maybe that's spoiler room territory. Sorry if I'm breaking protocol
I don't think
there.
so.
I don't even,
But
You can't spoil this movie.
This movie's hard to spoil, but yeah, like, and then because he's in the prologue and the epilogue, and then the epilogue ends with like what is presented as some kind of reveal, but it has nothing to do with anything we've seen in the previous 90 minutes.
Right, he puts the woman in the van and then closes the door and, like radioactive contents inside.
Yeah, what does that
I don't know
mean?
what that means.
It was baffling.
At the end, when I was like, what the fuck is going on with this guy and these girls? I assumed that the girls were what they were recruiting for the murderers to go through their scenes in the death house.
Like he's a casting agent?
Yeah, he's
the
a
death
casting
house?
Exactly. That's what I thought.
Could be. I hadn't even
I
thought
had
of that.
to really fucking think about that for a long time, though.
All right, let me try to provide a skeletal synopsis of what's vaguely going on in this movie. Basically, we have our 2 heroes. They are agents from unknown agency who are coming to this prison. It's a high security prison, and it takes, I guess, the worst criminals in the world. They experiment on them, and they put them in like Matrix-like simulations where they get to relive their crimes or something. They're trying to like reprogram them with technology somehow. And then like some of it seems to be like a normal prison, and then like at the basement of this big underground complex on the 9th level or whatever, you have the so-called 5 evils, which are just hilarious. We'll get into this in a little bit, but they give you all their bios at the beginning of the film, and they're all fucking hilarious. But anyway, they're like the most evil criminals in like world history, down in the bottom, like immortals. And we have Kane Hodder's a new inmate coming in. There's a prison break that's caused by circumstances we don't ever really get to see. And then our heroes, our agents, are trying to escape the prison and escape all the throngs of inmates and killers. I think that's basically what's going on here.
That's what's going on, and there's like a supernatural, quasi-religious element going on as well that develops throughout that, again, makes absolutely no fucking sense. Something about how technology is like breeding a new form of violence. It's trying to be Cronenberg or Clive Barker or something. I don't know.
So one of the notes that I put down, and by the way, the last show that I was on, my first show, I had like one sentence that I wrote down for notes. I have three fucking pages that I have for notes. One thing I wrote down was 90s futuristic paranormal bullshit. That's how I kind of sum up the genre.
Yeah. That's a good sort of capsule review.
And you know what? I was loving it, and I actually, because Patrick broke our embargo a little bit, and he was texting us, and he was like, "I don't know if I can watch this fucking movie, guys." And then
I said I don't know if I'm going to be able to maintain embargo, just because I was like so just gobsmacked at what I was seeing that I like wanted to talk about it via text and just be like, are you guys seeing the same thing I am right now?
Well, and what's funny about this too is I think you were probably the most excited out of the 3 of us to see this movie, like maybe even more so than Chris. Like I was being very pessimistic about it, like, look, this is probably going to be shit and not the fun kind of shit.
Well, I try to get stoked about everything in advance. I try to go into everything with the most positive possible attitude. And I was like, all right, this sounds like the best possible interpretation of this concept. Sounds like it could be awesome. So I went in like hoping for it to be awesome.
And I think even with the script that's there, it could have been a lot more entertaining. This movie just drags and drags at like a somnolent pace. There's nothing really exciting going on. Like even when, you're expecting like this like prison break siege sort of thing going on, and there are very few action sequences, and when there are, you can't even tell what's going on because it's so fucking dark and incompetently shot. Like I could see
agree.
this, I could see the bones of this being made into something that at least offers like really stupid fun genre thrills at a clip. That's not what we got though.
I agree with you there. I guess I don't necessarily agree with the somnolent pace. I see how you could have that experience with it, but my experience was more, it's just throwing new shit at you every 2 minutes that doesn't make a damn bit of sense. And I was sort of more overwhelmed by all the different strange information that was being thrown at me. But I could see how, like, you just get worn down by that shit, and it starts to feel like just that draggy pace, because it's like, okay, there's another, like, weird sci-fi concept being explained to me that makes no sense and is invalidated by the concept explained in the next scene. I'm bored, you know?
Therein lies the problem for me with the pacing of this movie, because I realized after about 10 minutes, none of this is going to add up to anything, and it just got to be like I could choose to be exhausted or just have a very sleepy experience with it and let it roll, and I chose the latter.
Oh yeah, I think you guys wrecked yourselves on this, because after the first 5 or 6 minutes, I was already like, this movie is just incompetent on all levels and throwing insane shit at me, and I'm just gonna scoot back into my couch and I'm just gonna let it hit me. I'm just gonna roll with it.
I'm not gonna lie, after watching 30 minutes of this, I decided to get high, and I could not get high enough to enjoy this. It was still just like infuriating to sit through.
I was having a pretty damn good time. I watched like about 15 or 20 minutes in, I texted Steve. This is where I was going with that text conversation thing, because Patrick had already, said less than encouraging things to us in the group chat. So then I just texted Steve. I said, honestly, this movie fucks so far. Because, I was loving it.
Then you complained that Patrick and I were ruining your new favorite movie at one point.
Oh, yeah, because Steve said, this is almost unwatchable. And I said, you're all doing a lot of bitching about my new favorite film. Now, did it end up my new favorite film? No. But there's still some things that, I just tried to get on its level, and I was having a damn good time with. Especially, the introduction of these 5 evils. This was just maybe it's just because I play a lot of Metal Gear Solid and I'm used to this kind of shit, but they introduced these guys. I took a screenshot. I actually posted a screenshot of one of these to Twitter. But
you know what, Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I actually wrote in my notes, can we roll the clip for that at some point during this? Because I feel like it just has to be heard to be believed.
Yeah. Let's just roll the clip of them introducing this Alexei Nila.
Alexei Nila, age undetermined. Deported to United States 1994 under U.S.-Russian Psi Exchange. Cannibal, necromancer. Connected to deaths of over 700 children.
And then it cuts to our hero, in his VR, briefing, just squirming and saying, 700 kids. That was just amazing. And I didn't even care if it was played straight or played for comedy. It was just amazing to me. And at its best, this movie really just captures that absurdity where you're just amazed at what you're seeing and the pace at which you're seeing it.
It's a lot like a Neil Breen movie in a lot of ways too. I kept thinking of him during this, where it feels like he might have honestly been an influence, which would be hilarious. But when we're introduced to the 5 evils, Sid Haig plays one of them, and I was very confused about this. Does he kill those 2 people with icicles?
Oh, I wrote that down.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that you said that.
And I didn't understand. He's in the sweltering summer sun, sitting in a wheelchair. He does have a cooler next to him, so I guess he could have kept those icicles fairly fresh and hard, but I don't know what was going on.
Yeah,
there.
his name is the Icicle Killer.
Oh, right? Okay, I missed that.
I missed that too.
Well, yeah, you did miss it because it's not referenced in the movie. You only find that out if you look up the credits. You don't know that's his name unless you look in the credits.
Oh, you said that like you fucking idiots. He's the Icicle Killer.
No, I meant if there was a fucking idiots implied, it's everyone who made this movie is a fucking idiot. That was what was implied in my tone.
God, and I feel so bad shitting on this because Gunnar Hansen and Kane Hodder were awesome guys. There's actually a really great documentary about Kane Hodder on Shudder, and he's a fascinating person. We get the in memoriam to Gunnar Hansen at the end. I want to see something in this just because I admire those 2 guys so much, and I can't, man. I gotta speak ill of the dead here.
I actually got. That's so weird that you mentioned that Kane Hodder seems to be a good guy in real life. I don't know really anything about him in real life, but there's something about his performance in this that I don't know. I think it's probably just because he's not a tremendous actor necessarily, so I felt like I was getting more of just Kane Hodder being Kane Hodder, and for some reason I was just getting good vibes. I was like, even though you're playing a psychopath, you seem like you're probably a good guy. I don't know. I was just getting good feels off him for some reason.
Oh, he's a sweetie. I mean, all these guys are. Like Michael Berryman has made a career out of, taking care of like rescue animals and stuff. He's like a big animal activist. Like, horror people are the best. Like, I genuinely love, having only met one of these people, Dee Wallace, but like I love hearing about people like Felissa Rose and like what their actual lives are like, because after their brief flirtation with fame, like I wanted to get on this movie's level just because I have such a fondness for all of these people. But man, I feel like they were duped into this somehow.
So can we have a group discussion and try and figure out what the fuck these two protagonists are doing at this place to begin with? Because
no clue.
No idea.
No fucking clue.
It's
There's no discussion to be had.
Inexplicable from scene to scene. We find out that they both have some kind of checkered pasts. Our female lead, whose name I already forget. Oh, Tori Alex Boone. Her middle name is spelled Alex,
Agent
but pronounced
Boone.
Alex. Agent Boone.
Toria Lex.
Boone
Toria Lex Boone.
Oh, right. Toria Lex Boone. That's right.
Yeah. And then Jay Tynan Novak.
These are the
God.
names that you come up with when you're like 14 years old and you think you're writing the coolest fucking name ever for your
Exactly.
character.
And you just need agents. Like, it doesn't matter where they're from or why they're there, but if you're making a movie about a prison siege, you have to have special agents.
Exactly.
And they get like a carte blanche tour to this facility that, I'm very confused as to why this thing exists in the first place. It seems to have something to do with Operation Paperclip, which is a real thing. And then it's been like abandoned by the government, so they can just do whatever the fuck they want with these inmates and experiment with them, to no end.
But the agents come there and they both have this checkered past. Agent Boone killed a couple of people while she was undercover to try and maintain her cover while she was trying to incriminate Kane Hodder's character, Sieg. Novak just sort of randomly slit some throats. That's never really explained at all what the fuck he was doing with that.
It was like the Daniel Pearl execution. I thought it was a little bit crass the way that was presented, but he was like embedded in the Middle East apparently. And I don't know if the implication is that they were doing it because they had to maintain their cover, or if it was actually like part of their graduation from their agency that they just had to do this.
Right. And at some point, it's sort of intimated. Literally in the same scene, Barbara Crampton suggests that the two agents are there basically to be healed and sort of like to be made whole again and be made like proper humans again after they've committed these terrible crimes. But then she excuses their crimes in the next moment, and it's really hard to tell if they're supposed to be there to be like punished and rehabilitated, or if they're in a way almost being rewarded because Agent Boone gets to go into a simulation and kill the murderer of her mother, played by Danny Trejo in another just absolutely bizarre cameo. Just boggling. I don't know. I don't know what they were doing there.
I was equally confused, Patrick. I didn't know if they were being punished or what. Like, I kind of expected that as this went on, this whole thing might be kind of a trial for them, another experiment that the Death House is perpetrating. And given how it ends, maybe that was the intent. I honestly have no idea.
Right. And the characters don't know either. Like, at one point, they both say they don't remember anything about their lives outside of the Death House. And it's kind of suggested that maybe this is all just an illusion, that they've been trapped in there for some, nefarious purpose. But it's never clarified. It is absolutely mind-boggling. It's just incomparable to me. I have not seen something this just obtuse in I don't know when was the last time I saw something like this.
It's a paragon of incompetence, and like I wanted at some point I was like, who could have made this work? What filmmaker could like make me want to try and get on the level? I was thinking, okay, here's my dream cast for this, or my dream like production duo. I want Lee Wan-el to direct it. And I want Warren Ellis to write the screenplay.
Oh my
Just take
God,
all the
yes.
bones that are there, and like that's a fucking movie that I can get behind.
Wow, Warren Ellis.
Maybe they'll remake it. But I did have a think, like, similar to what you were, how we discussed Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. I hope that there's like a 8-year-old kid watching this movie somewhere and just loving it. And then he's going to grow up and be a competent filmmaker and he's going to remake it.
No, Chris, the whole problem, I think, is that this movie was made by someone who was once an 8-year-old kid who watched a lot of bad horror movies and just never really truly grew up.
I mean, guys, we like talked about this Sid Haig scene, but we didn't even touch on the weirdest part of it, which is that it comes while Agent Novak is taking a virtual tour of the facility that he's already inside. He's taking a virtual tour of a facility that he could very easily and plausibly take a physical tour of. That's one. That's note one. Note two is then all of a sudden we go into this simulation/hallucination with Sid Haig, where Sid Haig is puzzled almost by why he's seeing Agent Novak. And this scene just like appears out of nowhere. Sid Haig makes vague references to something that happens with Agent Novak's brother, something that happened with his brother in the past, as if
Oh yeah.
Novak
what the hell does that
should.
mean?
As if like Novak should know the meaning of this, and it's what? I don't know.
What indeed? I mean, what in every frame? Okay, even the beginning. I'm like, Tony Todd's like just menacing this woman vaguely out in the fucking pasture lands.
Well, aren't they right outside the death house or like near the
Yes,
grounds?
they are.
And there's like a vent in the desert where you can hear Wilhelm screams coming out constantly.
Yeah, and there's a faucet where you can pour tar.
Yeah, what was that?
And you know what? The whole
my
time
God.
he did that, so he opened the faucet up and put his hands under there, and then he was like licking the blood, and then he gave her some, and I'm thinking, your hands are fucking dirty, man.
Oh,
And
is
he's a
that
kid, and he
blood?
was eating blood. Yeah, I thought it was blood. Was it not blood?
Blood, tar,
I thought it was oil.
evil,
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was like crude oil. It's like black.
black gold, Texas tar.
I thought it was like putrid blood.
This makes me want to see Tony Todd in some more rural roles, though.
I was getting a very like Flannery O'Connor vibe from that opening sequence, and I was like sort of
peaceful as
excited to
hell.
see where that would develop.
I want to see him like growing tomatoes.
You know, it almost feels like, you know, when you used to tape movies off of TV, it almost seems like there's the beginning and ending of a potentially interesting movie starring Tony Todd, and then somebody just taped 88 minutes of bullshit over it.
Or like just like they had their VCR timer set up on the Sci-Fi Channel, so it was just starting and stopping at random increments of random movies over the course of like 3 weeks.
It flipped between TCM and Sci-Fi at the beginning and end. I think is what really happened here.
But as like Tony Todd's doing all this, there's also like 72-point font titles all over the entire fucking screen. You can barely even see Tony Todd's face, even though they paid him probably $15,000 for the day or something.
That's generous.
His face is like covered up by Adrienne Barbeau's name, who again does not appear in this movie.
Patrick, I'm so glad that you explained that Adrienne Barbeau is the narrator, because I paid attention to this movie. I did try and do my best to get through it. The whole time I was like, did I hallucinate and miss her or something?
Yeah, I spent an embarrassing amount of time trying to figure out if Adrienne Barbeau was the like Countess Bathory evil lady, even though I knew she wasn't.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a huge Felissa Rose fan. I didn't even notice Felissa Rose in this movie.
Really?
She has a very small part.
Yeah, it is a small part, but I mean, Felissa Rose is unmistakable. Wait, do you mean you actually didn't notice her? You didn't find her in the movie, Steven?
Yeah.
She's in the scene where they like show all the drugged, like, I guess they're supposed to be homeless people standing around with the green screen behind them. She's one of the two like lab assistants and is wearing an improbably bright red outfit for a lab assistant, given that the other person is wearing like a standard doctor's white coat.
Therein lies one of the huge problems with a movie like this, that, we're not talking like a Robert Altman ensemble here. But even that can be like a little bit distracting sometimes, like waiting for, Andy McDowell to show up or something. But in this movie, like, I spent an inordinate amount of time, like, distracted by what was going on because I'm like, wait, has Bill Moseley shown up yet? Where was Felissa Rose? Like, you see these people in the opening credits and it almost feels like a game or a sport or something, like Spot the Celebrity. Did anybody else have that experience?
Kind of. There were plenty of folks I recognized and also some I didn't recognize. So it was kind of a situation where I was frequently checking my phone to see who played who and if it was somebody of note, you know, because I was like, again, I recognize some and others I'm like, I maybe should recognize this person, but I don't. So I was just constantly checking to see who was who.
It's like, you know, we talked about it in the Green Room episode about Patrick Stewart being stunt casting. Like, this entire movie was stunt cast.
So, I mean, okay, what's going on with these homeless people? So, all right, so the ostensible premise is that we have a prison where the prisoners are all subjected to some combination, and even this is something that we could probably spend 30 minutes discussing and never get anywhere, some combination of drugs and high-tech virtual simulation / hallucinations, and these things are intended to somehow rehabilitate them and make them, you know, like post-human, transhuman, as the term is used at one point.
And they explain transhuman is better than human, as if that didn't seem obvious enough.
And we're repeatedly shown various killers in, you know, kind of a catatonic state where they're under the influence of this combination of drugs and technology. But we also have, like, this cast. We find out that they drag homeless people in off the street and meticulously cast people who look like the killer's past victims to put them into these scenes, which was very confusing to me, because if it's a virtual simulation, why do you have to bring in real people to go into these scenes that are ostensibly hallucinations? And I know, of course, the answer is we don't know.
The technology isn't there yet, man. The technology isn't there. It's like they can make nightstands, they can make beds, they can't make people in the Matrix.
It's crazy, too, because they just have like one giant green screen soundstage, which I think also most of the rest of this movie was shot on.
That was fascinating.
And, they're all acting at the same time within like 3 feet of each other. I couldn't wrap my brain around what this technology was supposed to be.
Oh, do you think those people were all like actively in simulations in that moment?
No, because they were in the casting department. They were in the listen. I think
Chris is right.
It feels like such a feeble, futile effort to like try to like correct each other on the details of the plot of this movie.
Right. There is no right and no wrong in the world of Death House.
I don't care. But no, that was, I think, the casting department, the intake kind of for all of them. But yeah, the green screen set was pretty interesting just because, like when you're dealing with this many stars, like the most efficient way to do it is just to do everything in one big green screen studio and have like Sid Haig come in and sit on a picnic blanket for 5 minutes and do his scene on the green screen set.
Yeah.
And then he goes out one door and Tony Todd comes in, or not Tony Todd, I guess, was actually outside, but you know, so many of these characters were just on the green screen set for a day. Just at a revolving door. And then, but like the thing is, if you have that much green screen in your movie, you should at least figure out how to light your green screen so that it's not bleeding green onto everyone's shoulders, which literally takes like 2 lights. Okay,
that drove me fucking crazy.
I mean, let's be real. That scene with the green screen in the background, where you literally see the green screen, as opposed to the many other scenes in the movie that were shot on a green screen and then the backgrounds were added later. That scene exists, I feel, almost exclusively just to have 2 gratuitous boob shots. You know, as Christine pointed out earlier. You know, it's like, I think it's Felissa Rose or maybe the other woman, her sidekick in that scene, just like rips open these basically paper gowns that all these people are wearing. And of course, they both have like huge boobs.
And wasn't the purpose of that to show the diversity of the casting that they've done? Like, we have many kinds of boobs here.
She was talking about, too, I think, that they specifically pick these homeless people. They even supposedly smell like these, like, victims.
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
How would they know that?
Exactly. And how lucky is it that they found a homeless man or homeless woman to match that smell? bizarre.
I saw in the end credits of this movie that there's like 200 credited background artists on this movie, and I don't know what the fuck. I can't explain it.
It felt like aside from the principal cast, the B-list celebs, that there were like 12 other people in this movie to me.
There were a lot of extras. I mean, it was a Prison Break movie. We did get some good fight scenes quote unquote, good fight scenes between the inmates and the riot police. And
I would know. I couldn't see shit because of how black the screen was.
Yeah.
And this is not like complaining about the finale of Game of Thrones. This was like legitimately badly shot. Almost as if to try to obscure the fact that the director had no idea what he's doing. I mean, this is a director who can't even match lines, which also drove me. It's not something I usually notice, but when it's not being done well, it drives me fucking crazy.
it was just technically preposterous in almost every level. I mean, my favorite shot of the movie is like when we are like soon after we're introduced to Jay Tynan Novak and Tori Lex Boone. They're like entering the facility down like a long cinder block hallway, and we just stay with them the entire time. It's like a 45-second shot.
Horrible. It's like, when the fuck is this gonna be over?
Haven't you ever heard of fucking coming in late, leaving early, you sons of bitches?
It's like they thought they were making the corridor walk scene from Silence of the Lambs, except without any of the elements along the course of that walk that make it interesting or heighten the tension.
Our guy Harrison Smith loves Goodfellas, and he wanted a steady cam shot as they're coming in. Except he didn't have a set, he just had a hallway.
Guys, I gotta say, like, I try, as I've said before, to approach each of these movies with as much love and positivity as possible, and kind of to take the most positive possible spin on them. But goddamn, it feels real good to just be fucking cutting promos on this movie right now, because it deserves it. It may be the most incoherent fucking thing I've seen in this entire 2.5-year-long journey of watching every horror movie on Netflix.
Yes, speak for yourself, because I thought it was amazing and a beautiful film because of
fuck
this.
You.
But the three Satans, though.
Crazy.
I mean, there's this. These three characters are introduced. One thinks he's the son of Satan. One thinks he created Satan. The third thinks that he is Satan. We spend like 5 fucking minutes with these guys, and again, this goes absolutely nowhere.
Well, we're told what their roles allegedly are, but two of them disagree with the roles that the doctors have like prescribed to them as well, and there's like this bickering about it. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching here? This makes no sense.
What the fuck was going on with the tattoos?
Did
we get an answer for that?
No.
Like, when they were in this shower scene, so Boone and Novak are in the shower, showering together, obviously naked. No soap in sight, all right? They were in the shower for how fucking long without any soap? And there's tattoos all over their body. Like, this guy has this weird, like, filigree, like, tree-looking thing with birds. It looks like something that you'd buy in the dollar store, one of those, like, wall vinyls that it's like, home, love, faith, like one of those things. And they both say, I have all these tattoos. I don't know why I have them. I don't know what they mean. He's got this, like, girl on his chest, like this little girl, I guess.
And she's holding, like, a candelabra or something, if I remember correctly. It's mystifying, and it felt like the entire scene was just so that we could see tits, honestly.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
This movie felt to me a little bit like Corbin Nash, which was a movie we watched that was very incoherent, but we later found out was written to be a prequel to the movie they actually wanted to write and make. So, like, scenes like that, like, it kind of felt, in the way this ends, it's like, I almost felt like this was a prequel to a better idea that somebody had.
But if it's the first movie that comes out, it's not a prequel.
Right.
I was going to make that exact same comparison. It has big Corbin Nash energy where you almost feel like they have some larger concept planned out and it's never going to be realized.
Oh, thank God.
But, I mean, so the shower scene ties directly into one of the things I was going to bring up, which is just how lifeless these protagonists are. Like, where did they find these two people? These performances are devoid of charisma.
Thank you, Patrick, because I feel like you're always like a lot more charitable about acting in our EHMON movies than I am, and I was about to blow a gasket if you said anything positive about these performances. Like, even in the scene where they're hanging on the fucking homeless people trying not to get discovered, there's nary a moment of tension in either of their eyes. I mean, they're just, I don't even know how to describe it.
Let's cut our bright young fresh-faced actors a break, because we're also talking about, Dee Wallace phoning it in. A lot of these actors phoning it in. It's too soon to make proclamations about the inherent acting ability of any of these people, but obviously they did not have great material or direction to work with.
That's true. I mean, that does make a big difference. God, Dee Wallace, so disappointing. It felt like she was afraid to say her lines, almost. Like she was speaking in hushed tones the entire time, even when it was unnecessary.
Well, they were being hunted by inmates who wanted to murder them all.
Even before
I didn't get that at all. I will defend Dee. I think Dee, I mean, not a great performance, but she's fine. It's good. It's fine. I like her hair. It's good hair.
It's wild hair.
The actress who plays Boone is just like, constantly dead-eyed. But okay, my second note. Here's my second note. Here's my positive thing that I have to say is Lloyd Kaufman shows up about halfway through this movie and just destroys every little scene that he's in as the doctor performing surgery on this guy who's had like a, I don't know, EMP or what's placed inside that guy's body. And Lloyd Kaufman just goes for the camp that everybody else should have been going for and is fucking hilarious.
God bless him. God bless him in drag in the Cursed film series on Shudder. Like, the man is having a late career renaissance, and I was so happy to see him just having fun. That's what's lacking in the rest of this entire movie. Nobody seems to want to be there, and he's like, I'm just going to go gonzo like 80s SCTV nonsense for this scene because it doesn't deserve any more.
That's how the rest of the movie should have been, and it would have been a masterpiece.
Yes.
But the rest of it is not self-aware. Lloyd Kaufman's the only person in this movie who seems to be self-aware. Yeah. And the way that whole sequence is constructed is so bizarre because he's just doing surgery to find this device, but like it's intercut with just completely arbitrary scenes from the rest of the movie. So it's like we're watching a scene and then it cuts back to this operating theater for like 5 seconds where all we do is see like Lloyd Kaufman hamming it up like without his mask on in the surgery, then back to something that like supposedly drives the plot forward, then back to Lloyd Kaufman with his hands in someone's guts.
I will also give credit to Barbara Crampton. Barbara Crampton is a lot of fun to watch in this and seems to actually be having fun.
She's at home. She's in her element.
Yeah. Enjoyable.
Well, I think it's time to review the damn thing so we can talk about some of these ostensible plot details in a little more detail. What do you say?
Yeah, let's go for it.
You want to go first, Steven? It sounds like you're rating. I don't know what to expect.
Seriously?
Would you view it, cue it, or screw it?
This is like, I mean, so for the listeners, Chris stepped away for a moment. You're not going to hear that bit, but Patrick was talking with me and Christine about like the dregs of the movies we've watched, the movies that like have gotten all screw-its from us, and man, I hope this joins the ranks. This was just an awful, awful slog to get through. I used the term paragon of incompetence before, and I think that's my capsule review for this. Just nothing works on any level of this movie. It's impossible to tell what's going on, what the philosophy of it is, what the politics are. There's not even really any exciting action in it to kind of keep you going. So I will give this the hardest possible screw it I can give it.
Wow.
Patrick.
Wait, does that mean you disliked it? Are you screwing it harder than anything you've screwed in the entire history of EHMON?
No, but I'm saying like I'm screwing it as hard as one can screw a movie on this podcast. I think it belongs in the bottom ranks.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I mean, as you mentioned, I was looking at the list because I was just, my instinct is this is one of the, if not the worst movie that I've watched for this show. And I was just going through our most disliked movies. I have to confess, several of them I don't even remember. If any of you listeners out there remember a damn thing about dead awake, clinical, bleed, be afraid, shoot me an email, just kind of fill me in on whatever the hell happened in that movie, and then maybe I can have a better opinion. But, I mean, suffice it to say, this is one of the most puzzling films I've ever seen. Steven keeps using the term paragon of incompetence. I would just tweak that slightly. It's more, there are some competent things about the movie to me. To me, I'm just boggled by the incoherence. It just does not fit together. It doesn't make sense. There are so many scenes that, as I said before, just invalidate the scene that came before. And, I almost want to give it extra points for boggling my mind in this unique way, because I was entertained at times, but it's just so poorly done. I've struggled to find words throughout this episode to really express just what was going on here, and I'm going to lay it to rest. Screw it. Christine.
So far you both have had a lot to say about how you want to screw it. I don't have that much to say because that is pretty much how I sum up the movie. Not a lot going on. There's a lot going on, but not a lot going on, if you know what I mean. Nothing really made sense. Nothing was really entertaining. Thought the sound effects sucked. The last half an hour of the movie, it was so dark I could barely tell what was going on in terms of fight scenes. Let's just say screw it, man. Screw it. It's not worth your time. It's not boggling enough to be like, I'm going to watch it again and see if I could pick up on some other stuff. It was kind of just a dumpster fire.
As I noted, I did rewatch the first half hour, and that's it's not a rewarding experience. If you're thinking about going back and trying to find those extra notes, don't waste your time.
I want to add, kind of piggybacking on what Christine said, just add to my review a little bit, just to make this as clear as possible, this is, and I don't know if this comes across in our discussion or not, this is not a fun, bad movie, at least for me. This is not like a future cult classic in the making. It hurt my brain to try and keep up with this thing in the worst way possible. Chris, what did you think? I feel like you're going to be a little more positive than the rest of us.
All right. So, look, I agree with everything you guys said. I agree it belongs in the bottom tier of all the movies we've watched on this podcast. I have to give it a cue it, though, because this is just so inscrutable and such a unique film experience for me. Such an experiment in insanity to me. I did not get bored with it. I mean, if anything, it flew by because I was still trying to figure out the premise of the movie, and I looked at the time and I was more than halfway through it. And I was like, oh, okay.
And then the next time that you were trying to figure out the premise of the movie, you checked the time and it was over.
Basically, yeah. No, I texted someone else last night. I said, I feel like I knew more about this movie before I watched it than I do now.
That's real. Actually,
yeah.
I read the plot synopsis and I was like, oh, this sounds like it's going to be a pretty straightforward romp.
Every decision in this movie is just completely confounding and alien to me. And I found it to be kind of precious in that sense. And,
precious.
I honestly can't say that I'll never watch it again. And I'm sorry that you guys, because I understand how you could just not have any enjoyment. For me, it was not so bad it's good, but definitely so bad that it's interesting. And, there's certainly no other movie like it. So I'll say cue it. Check it out if you want.
That assessment is Patrick as fuck, and I love it.
If you're going to see a movie called Death House. No.
It's not okay, what I don't understand, too, is it's not a house. It's a prison. Why is it called a death house? There are other death houses, apparently.
The big house.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that sort of makes sense.
These things get nicknames.
When I hear death house, I think haunted house.
Let's just put it this way. That's number 573 on my list of the top most inscrutable things about this movie. Oh, did I say 573? I meant 573,000.
Well, when Chris said, like, when you hear about a movie called Death House, I'm like, this is not what I'd expect from that title.
No, not at all.
Well,
right.
I mean, to be fair, we when we saw Abattoir, we thought it was going to take place in an abattoir. When we watched Dead Awake, we didn't think it was going to be a movie about people who are asleep most of the time.
Lord.
Fair. Totally fair, Chris.
Hey, you know what has less false advertising than this movie? Our merch store.
Our merch store. Great segue. Or great seg.
Wow.
Don't they say that
That's
one?
real
Yeah,
smooth.
as Dee Wallace would pronounce it, a great seg in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Did anyone notice that? She says seg
I noticed
instead
that.
of segue.
I noticed that, too.
There were several mispronunciations in this
I
movie.
could barely hear her during this movie, so of course I didn't notice that.
The word acquirement is also used in this movie rather than acquisition. Yeah, so to get to what we're selling, though, to complete my really graceful seg, we have a merch store. If you may not have heard so far, we have our beautiful logo that I designed on t-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, whatever you want. Go check that out at everyhorrormovieonnetflix.com. It's available at the merch store link. And also don't forget to follow us on all your social platforms at EHMONcast, EHMON and to review us. Drop us a little rating. We like to hear your feedback, and it helps people find the show. And at the same time, if you like the show, recommend it to your friends. That also makes it easier for people to find the show. I'm done. That was my whole seg.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break. We're going to go catch our breath, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to delve into the spoiler room. I don't know if we'll have too much to talk about, but we'll be probably breaking down some of the more incoherent scenes and choices that happened in this movie.
Oh, Chris, we're going deeper than the spoiler room. We are going down to the ninth circle of hell.
Oh, we're going to
going
meet the
down
five
to hell.
evils, baby. Five evils, here we come.
I would follow you guys to hell.
I wrote that line down, too.
Dude,
Is that exactly where you're going? Let's find out. All right, we'll be back in a minute. Stick around. All right, welcome back. We are down here at level 9 of the spoiler room. I'm ready to turn myself into an immortal being. How about the rest of y'all?
I mean, we got
Yep.
four evils down here right now, so we only need one more and we're ready to party.
Which, okay, so like, I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Let's just try to get into it. Basically, what goes on in this movie towards the end of the movie is Kane Hodder emerges, and I guess in retrospect, I think maybe his plan all along, even going back to when he was arrested, was to do this. He's basically causing a prison. I think he causes the prison break. I think like an acolyte of him, because it's a little kid wearing a Nazi hat, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
Let's go with that.
we can only benefit so much from trying to figure this stuff out. But he's trying to get down to the 9th level and interface with the 5 evils and basically become the 6th evil, I guess. And what is an evil? I don't know. Like a kind of a god, kind of a devil. Who
But
the
also,
fuck knows?
okay,
And they have really cool outfits.
They do have
right?
sweet outfits.
Really cool outfits with different shapes, glowy
Yeah.
shapes.
They're basically like the people from in the fucking what's it called in Superman?
From the Phantom Zone.
Phantom Zone. They're basically in the Phantom Zone.
Hold
from
on, though.
Superman.
Let's back up a bit. And I'm like with most things with this movie, I feel like I'm at risk of sounding really stupid, which is ridiculous because it's so hard to follow. There's a moment
You
where
cannot sound stupider than this movie. Let's just put it that way.
there's a moment where like there are like rivaling factions like at the start of the prison break, and one of them, I don't know who he's played by, if he's somebody I'm supposed to know from Pumpkinhead or whatever the fuck, but he he seems to.
It was not Lance Henriksen.
It was not Lance Henriksen. We can be.
Where the fuck was Lance Henriksen in this movie?
What else did he have to do? What better does Lance have to do?
That dude still does like 5 direct-to-video movies a year. He was probably too busy.
They were probably shooting this when Lance Henriksen was at Motor City Comic Con when I saw him and incoherently told him to do another season of Millennium.
Oh, God. So anyway, there's a scene that like totally baffled me, and I backed up, and like something about like the reverse function on Netflix didn't really satisfy me. There's a scene where it appears that Kane Hodder's entrails get ripped out, but then he...
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
What is going on there?
Ken Hodder dies. Ken Hodder gets shot, falls off a fucking like 4-story ramp in the prison block,
and then
hits
stands
the ground,
fuck up.
gets his entrails ripped out, and then comes back to life. And he's like, "See, look, I'm immortal."
Yeah, he's like,
and
it's like, who else wants to try me?
Doesn't he get his intestines ripped out by that big guy that he squared off with after that scene?
Yeah.
Or at the end of that scene?
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, he also has these weird cuffs on that shoot like little harpoons basically into his stomach at one point, and this whole concept of this technology is explained in the briefest little like CG fly through earlier in the virtual tour that the agents are receiving. Like you see like a blueprint, like a little schematic for how this technology works earlier on, and then you're all of a sudden just supposed to go, oh yeah, that's what happens when he like tries to resist, is he gets a little harpoon shot into his stomach. And that becomes somewhat relevant in this scene where he gets shot. It's, my God, this is like a dream. I feel like I'm recounting a dream when I talk about this movie.
Same, because I backed up and I was like, wait, Kane Hodder's back? And I was like trying to find the moment where he reemerges from death. And I just, again, I don't know. It was something with like the scrubbing on Netflix. I couldn't find it. And I was eventually like, you know what? Well, this is all a dream. It doesn't fucking matter. He died. He's back.
No, it's not. It's not the scrubbing on Netflix. It's just that it's that cursory, the way that he stands back up from being apparently shot to death.
Okay, I was giving this way too much of the benefit of the doubt. Thank you for clearing that up.
Nothing makes sense.
No.
Nothing makes sense. And I don't know, I guess you can hand wave that away by being like, oh, well, he's evil, he's not a Nazi, but also an occultist or something. They say something like that.
You know, at this point in the movie, it almost started to feel like a Hodorowski comic book to me, where it's like there's all these big issues of like life and death and technology and the devil, and like it doesn't really make sense because it's just Hodorowski's acid dream and you're just supposed to follow it. Unfortunately, this movie is not as beautiful to look at as a Hodorowski graphic novel.
They're certainly aspiring to something like that. At the end, we get like so much exposition from these evils about the nature of evil. And
But okay, my question is, what does that mean? What is their power? What are they trying to accomplish except to like
Absolutely
restore the
nothing.
balance of evil? It's delirious.
Like Bill Moseley just monologues about the nature of evil and how good and evil are just constructs and evil people need to be chased and blah, blah, blah. And we're creating a new morality, a new human race, blah, blah. And it's literally just bullshit. Like, I mean, it makes no more sense and is no more gripping than the way I just attempted to recount it in 10 seconds.
But he also
just
mentions
fucking babble.
He also mentions like social media and how social media has given way to a new form of violence that evil can exploit. And I'm like, okay, then like make that mean something to me. And it doesn't happen.
all of this stuff, there are so many moments in this movie where characters, especially these 5 evils, just say things that it's like the script was just cobbled together from like some angsty high schooler's like Facebook posts, like one sentence long platitudes about, well, you know, did you ever think that like evil, you can't have good unless you have evil? And like any one of those ideas maybe could have been developed into like a mature theme that the movie could have kind of leaned on, but instead it's just they just are thrown haphazardly into every line of dialogue and ultimately mean nothing.
Well, I don't understand what their end game is. I don't understand how they came to harness these powers in this prison.
But did they look cool? Did they look cool?
They looked all right. They looked all right. They looked cool. Yeah, the mission accomplished.
They were badass. Did you recognize the actors who played them?
Well, okay. Here's I talked about eye lines or sight lines earlier. Like, that was the scene where I fucking lost my shit, because you got the five evils standing around in their cool outfits with their glowing like Tony Stark symbols on their chest, and we've got our two protagonists, our mysterious agents, and every single one of these like B actors, Bill Moseley, Michael Berryman, I don't know who else is in that scene. Whenever they look like they're supposed to be looking toward our protagonists, they're looking the wrong way. And it just keeps compounding to a maddening degree in the sequence, which is, again, something I don't normally notice in a movie because it's so rarely not done competently, and I found it just so distracting. It's like one of the most basic tenets of filmmaking, the 180-degree rule. In this movie, I don't know, maybe there's something there. Maybe they broke it intentionally to drive me crazy. I'm not sure. But again, that's probably like, in the 600,000th big problems I have with this thing.
I want to talk about a scene, because this scene, like, just really... Two scenes actually that they are subsequent really illustrate just it. Like, if I could show someone two scenes and say this is Death House, this is what I would do. The scene where they are hiding from the escaped inmates by clinging to like the meat hooked corpses in like the refrigerated area, and they're hiding, and they're hanging on for dear life for an interminable amount of time while the Ken Hodder and his buddies do other stuff on the ground. And then Dee Wallace can't hang on anymore, so she falls, and she falls about 2.5 to 3 feet.
Yes.
And but it's like slow-mo of her, like she looks like Mufasa, like the way they shoot her, like falling off of this thing.
Dude, I'm so glad that you brought this up, because I was so puzzled in this scene. I was like, is there something that I missed about the architecture of this room, or just the spatial geometry of this room? Is there more depth between them and the floor? And I'm so glad that you're backing up my perception that no, it's just a normal room, and she fell from, like you said.
Well, it's not a normal room. It's shot in a range so bizarrely that, like, at first we see them walk into this big cavernous sort of like warehouse room. You see these bodies hanging, 15 feet or more above the ground. I don't know how they get up there to hide on these bodies so quickly. And then when Dee Wallace falls, it looks like it was shot on a green screen, and she really just fell like 2 feet, but they tried to slow it down to make it look like there was greater depth or something.
Oh, so
it's
it is
wild.
a higher ceiling room.
It is
supposed to be
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay.
I can forgive all this confusion about like the room depth and how that actually worked out. But when she dies, they run over to her and they're like, "Where's the, what do they call it? The kill switch? The gas?"
Yeah.
Is that what they're talking about? And they're like, "Where's the kill switch?" And she won't tell them, or she can't tell them because she dies. But this is what I don't understand. Where the fuck are they going? I thought they were going towards the kill switch, but apparently they weren't. How do they not know where it's located already and working towards getting to it or getting... I guess I just didn't understand how they didn't already know about it.
Okay,
like,
Christine.
You gotta let it all go. You gotta let it all go to watch Death House.
Here's another huge problem I had. I mean, I wouldn't call it a problem because at this point I was bothered by nothing. I was just along for the ride. I don't know if they're going up or down the Death House. I don't know where the fuck they're at or where anybody's going or what their plan is.
I thought they were going up. So that the one main guy, what is his name? Sieg, is that his name?
Yeah.
Sieg, yeah.
So he was going down to, I guess, the 9th level to visit those anti-God type whatevers. But they were trying to go up. So, like...
When did they meet?
when did they meet?
Because they started at like level 4 and we're trying to get to level 0.
Exactly.
And Kane Hodder starts at level 5 and he's trying to get to level 9.
Well, and speaking of level 4, so this is all supposed to be I guess real mildly based off of Dante's Inferno, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Share your literary insight. That's why we brought you on this episode.
Okay.
We're like, we need a librarian to explain Dante's Inferno.
So I'm like, okay, well, their elevator has now stopped at the 4th level. So what the fuck? What does that mean, right? That has to have some kind of symbolism, right? That's what you would think. But the fourth level is greed. So, like, there's absolutely no tie into that. And then there's also, like, there's nine levels or layers, but then there's also the center of hell. Why aren't they going to the center instead of the ninth? It's like they're using Dante's Inferno just for the numbers of levels.
First of all,
Yes.
Dante's Inferno absolutely is badass, and Peter Jackson or somebody should make an adaptation of it. Secondly, I'm not sure they even say in this movie that it's modeled after Dante's Inferno. The only reason we know that is because it was in the Netflix synopsis.
Yeah.
So whoever writes those synopses probably just found the movie completely as confusing as we did.
Well, they probably just had some really good ad copy to work with.
Maybe, yeah, like, or they had like some like promo quote that from like a high school newspaper where it's like Dante's Inferno but modern or something.
Well, yeah, and like again,
It's probably on the poster.
It's never referenced in the movie, and I wonder how much more delirious this movie would have been had I not read the 2-sentence Netflix description.
Yeah, the Netflix description actually made it make sense. And I usually don't read those descriptions.
I don't either.
But anyway, the next scene, now that our heroes, Agent J, Tinnen, and Novak, and Boone, or whatever the fuck,
Toria Lex.
Toria, now that they're free of Dee Wallace, they decide they're going to go down to the bowels of hell for some reason. So they get in an elevator shaft. They go to the elevator shaft, and they're like, well, the quickest way down is the elevator shaft. Let's just fall and shoot or something.
Oh my God,
and
that scene.
they apparently just dive 6 to 7 stories down an elevator shaft, like maybe vaguely hanging onto the cable, but mostly in a free fall while they shoot, while some new metal song with lyrics starts playing. And then they get to the bottom, and Toria has her head's bleeding, and the guy's like, that looks pretty bad.
Like,
And,
no fucking shit. You just fell down 6 stories.
and he says, that looks bad, like, because she just fell down an elevator shaft, and she says, fuck it, I'm fine. And they keep going.
That whole sequence to me was very Resident Evil.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was.
Like, especially the first Resident Evil, where there's an almost identical scene where, like, Mila Jovovich, she's just, like, firing guns and, like,
Yes.
dropping down, like, insanely long tunnels or whatever.
Yes.
It's wild.
Yeah. So there was a good part. There was a good part of this movie.
Wait, what are you saying is the good part?
Yeah.
You guys didn't think there was a good part to this movie?
No.
Lloyd Kaufman.
No.
Full stop.
What about the part that was blatantly ripped off of the creepypasta?
Which creepypasta? What are you talking about?
The Russian sleep experiment creepypasta.
Are you talking about the scene with the, like, the mutated, like, people whose, like,
Yes.
flesh is gone?
Oh, which I thought was a great part. You guys didn't like that part?
Oh, I missed that. I totally missed that.
I was 110% down for that shit. That shit was weird as fuck. And yeah, all of a sudden I felt like I was actually in a movie that was scaring me and creeping me out a little bit, and I appreciated it. And then it was over. But
Okay,
I'm
my
glad you
problem with
reminded
that
me of it.
sequence is the characters are not afraid. They see these horrifying creatures, one of these creatures, like, inexplicably, and I thought about David Lynch a number of times during this movie, is like, okay, well, I'm willing to follow his weird mind. Why do I have a problem with this? This seemed like a direct David Lynch reference. There's one of these, like, creepy creatures that just has, like, their flesh turned inside out. It, like, repeatedly howls into an old-fashioned, like, 50s microphone
Yeah.
that's inexplicably
Why was
hanging
there a
from the
microphone
ceiling.
in there?
And the characters themselves who are standing there, they're like, oh, this is the safest place right now, according to Dee Wallace. They're not afraid at all. I mean, because they can't act to be afraid, these actors. But then once one of them starts, like, vaguely crawling toward them, they're like, oh, we should go. And they leave the door open behind them.
That happened really quickly, too, because I want to say there was a scene of them being introduced to these, what I call gooey guys. And then they're like, well, we just have to stay in here. We just have to stay in there. And then there's another scene with somebody doing something else. And it was really quick. They cut right back and they said, well, we can't stay in here any longer. I'm like, you were in there for like 2 minutes.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting introduced as like, yeah, this is the safe place. Like something really fucked up happened in here, but this is the place where we'll be safe from the mob, and these things won't hurt us because they don't want to escape or whatever. And the practical effects, I mean, the practical effects are fine throughout the movie. They were really amazing in this sequence.
Yeah.
These gooey guys look phenomenal. They look like they've had their flesh eaten off or whatever. You see all kinds of weird little critters and creatures and everything like that. It was really good and creepy. The problem for me is that it was good because it was plagiarized from creepypasta. There's a creepypasta that's been out for years and years about researchers who basically kept like people awake for like 15 days on a gas, and they all went crazy, and they put a microphone in the room so that they could monitor them. And then they started hearing fucked up stuff on the microphone, and then eventually they go back in and they see like these just subhuman things. They have like eaten their own flesh off and stuff, and they're like barely human, and they say, we no longer wish to be free, which is what the thing kept saying. So good creepypasta. We'll put that in the show notes if you haven't read that. The creepypasta is probably scarier than the sequence.
Because the sequence, it just happens like everything else in this movie. It's just there, and suddenly you're like, oh, wow, finally, in this crazy horror movie, some cool creature effects, and then it's over. Nothing really, there's no conflict whatsoever in that sequence. It's just, hey, you want to see something fucked up? All right, here it is, and we're gone.
Yeah, that was so good. And considering, like Christine said, it feels like they were writing this movie as they were filming it. They should have just stretched that out to like 20 minutes of this movie where they're just hiding in there with those things. Because that would have been more interesting.
I agree.
I was like legitimately nauseated, actually, when one of these creatures picks up a baby or fetus or something that has like a beak. I think it didn't look really human, and like takes a bite out of it. I was actually kind of sick to my stomach at that.
I laughed out loud, actually, because it started off creepy. I was like, ooh, I don't like this. The sound effect that they used, like the Foley they used for the bite, was clearly, I mean, I'd be shocked if this wasn't true. It was clearly just like one of the crew members biting into an apple.
Oh, I loved it though. That was part of what horrified me so much. It was just such, I don't know, it's a very weird sound effect. It really disoriented me.
I was just like, this thing is too goopy to sound so crisp when you bite into it. That doesn't make any sense to me. And
that made it weirder to me, actually. That was part of why I reacted to it so much, was actually that sound effect.
Huh.
But okay, what the fuck is going on with Sieg? Like, Sieg shows up at the end, like, everybody's standing around in their Tony Stark suits with, like, the PlayStation fucking buttons on the chest. And Sieg is trying to become one of them, and then he, like, fucking, there's, like, lightning ghosts that swoop into him and light him on fire.
I feel like to try to make sense of this is just to strip away what makes it special. Like, I don't know. I don't understand the motivations.
Well, I think we have a difference of opinion in the idea that it's special.
The gods are like, actually, Sieg, we've been following you forever. You disgust us. We're gonna kill you now. And why? And then he just like melts down. Great movie.
Well, also the gas that the agents have been trying to release for the entire third act all of a sudden just comes out. Can anybody clarify on why the gas, like the murder gas, comes out?
The gas was on a timer. The gas was always going to be released, and D. Wallace says, "Oh, it doesn't work on the 9th floor. Like, it goes down there, but it doesn't work on the gods or whatever because they're immortal, right?" So basically, they just had like a 45-minute timer on the gas, and it happened to go off when they were down there.
So was he killed by the gas, or was he killed by something else? Because I thought the gas made it so that the bacteria in your body basically ate your body from the inside out, but it looked like he kind of like turned into fire, like there was fire inside of him, and that's how he died. So what the hell did that have to do with the gas? I don't understand.
I think he was like, I don't know, my reading is like he was somehow...
Oh, that was a great silence. My reading on this, and again, I'm talking about this as if I had a peyote trip or something. Like, my reading of that was that, like, I don't know what he did, but, like, he wasn't good enough to join the ranks. Like, they didn't need him. There's 5 evils. They don't need a 6th evil. Like, what a joker. You think you can join us? And then he just spontaneously combusts. I don't know. I don't think there's any more logic to it than that. Holy fuck. This movie is wild.
So Christine, as like a fiction author, how would you fix this story?
I would print it all out and then I would throw it in the trash.
I was going to say, Chris,
and I would not hit save.
That's a big ask.
I think what is, we really need to figure out what the point of the story is. What's the theme? There's no theme here. There's no theme here. I wrote down.
But Christine, evil, right? Evil.
Well, and when we're first down in that ninth ring with the 5 evils, here's the theme of things. God is not evil, but he's not as good as everybody thinks. And I thought, okay, well, that's where we're going with this. This is a religious spin on things, and that, God is terrible because he lets all these terrible things happen, and yada, 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 yada. But then, that wasn't it at all. So I thought, okay, well, finally we have a theme, but then that was kind of thrown out, literally 5 minutes later. We really need a theme for this. We need some kind of underlying stitching.
Usually you need
together.
Some characters, right?
Characters, story arcs.
Well, there's a line early
good
on
tension.
That kind of... Oh, there's no tension in this whatsoever.
Oh, no. None. You can see it. I'm sorry. You can see it when they're in the elevator with the one scientist who has the monotone voice, who doesn't care about anything. And all of a sudden, it goes red, and she's explaining very calmly that they have no power, and nobody gives a shit. There's no tension. Nobody's freaking out. Nobody's concerned about anything.
Yep.
There was a line early on, and I wrote it down, but I honestly don't remember if this was spoken dialogue, if this was text. But it was my first note. Who prays for Satan, the original sinner? And I feel like that was that was supposed to set us up to make sense of all this, and it just it goes nowhere.
Yep.
You can't fix this.
Nope.
If anybody could, it's Christine, and she's as flummoxed as we are.
Throw it away.
The funny thing is, it ends with this shot of our heroes Jay, Tynan, Novak, and Toriel X Boone, special agents, walking out of the prison, and they're like, we don't know who we are. Let's go find out. And it's I don't know who the fuck you are.
When did this movie come out?
2017, I think.
2017.
Yeah.
And there's no sequel? Because that set it up for a sequel,
No.
I felt like.
Well,
yeah, there's no sequel.
What's going on in that final shot with Tony Todd where there's helicopters that I thought were going to descend upon the death house, but they go in the opposite direction? He's kind of moving his hand as if he's force willing them to do something, and then he says, yes, you have work to do. What work are they doing? Where are these helicopters coming from? And again, who is he? What is his role in all of this? Why that tag at the end of the movie? It's mind-blowing.
Aren't you just bothered that you're never going to know?
Listen, I'm not going to lose any sleep over this. I'm going to, like the Final Destination series, I will scrub this from my brain the second we stop recording. I'll be fine.
Oh, man. Chris, are you sure about that Cue It?
Yeah. Cue it, absolutely. Cue it. I've never seen a film like this.
Right.
I feel a little bit like William Friedkin felt about Father Amort. This movie enriched my life.
Oh my god.
All right, so what the hell are we watching next week? I think it's Patrick's turn to pick.
Yeah, what do you got, Patrick?
Yes. So, we mentioned on a recent episode that we had this video that we posted months ago from Dabe the Possession when we reviewed that movie, this crazy-ass scene from the movie. And recently, just a ton of folks from all over South Asia have been kind of discovering that video, and we've got over 6,000 views on it at this point, which is wild. So that just kind of reminded me. I was like, wow, we haven't done an international film in quite a while. And as I was...
Oh, I thought, are we doing Dobby 4, Dobby 5?
No, dude. I'm not fucking with that.
We're doing the Dobby we didn't do because we stopped doing alphabetical order?
No, the Dobby movies are all 2.5 hours long. I don't want to fuck with that. But as I was going through the Netflix horror listing right now, there's a lot of international films and specifically a lot of Thai horror films on Netflix right now. So next time we are going to watch the Thai horror film Nang Nak, Nang space Nak, And this is apparently like a really popular and really influential movie in Thai cinema. It was the first Thai film ever to make more than 100 million baht, which is the Thai currency, and continues to apparently be really influential there. So I'm very curious to see it. It takes place in the 1830s. It's supposed to be like a romantic ghost story. So very curious.
I wish it took place in the 1920s.
Yeah. Well, there's only one 1920 London Fear Strikes Again. I hate to say it.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll head over to Thailand in 2 weeks. And figuratively speaking, of course, we are still in lockdown. We're not up to international travel probably ever again. In the meantime, check us out online, do all that stuff we talked about. For every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Steven.
And very special thanks to our very special guest, Christine.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Christine.
Thanks for being here, and we'll see y'all next time.